And welcome into another episode of Tiger Territory, part of the Foul Territory Network, a Detroit Tigers podcast. I'm Kieran Steckley. With me, as always, is a man who would like a delay in the use of weather delay. He is Cody Stavenhagen. How are you doing?
We've seen some interesting weather delays this year, Kieran. We're recording this Sunday night. Just watched the Tigers' first two picks of the MLB Draft. Let's dive right into those, and we'll catch up on what happens the rest of the night on our next episode. But pick number one for the Tigers, number 24 overall. They take prep shortstop Jordan Yost, Sickles High School in Florida. Kieran, had you ever heard of this guy before tonight? I hadn't.
No, I had not. And again, with all the caveat being that I'm not a draft Nick, so but I did do a base level research we talked about in the last podcast, and I was looking for the profiles that I thought made sense for the Tigers. One of them was Sean Gamble, taken right before, so that didn't happen. And then obviously Cunningham, but that always kind of felt like a little on the unrealistic side. And then Jordan Yost from Florida commit. Like I said, didn't do a whole lot of homework on this guy, but then one thing came on the TV graphic, Cody, and I think you know what I'm about to say.
Oh, yeah.
Struck out 10 times in 290 at-bats during his high school career. That, to me, screams Scott Harris and company dominate the strike zone to a T. So that when I saw that was the thing that made me go, okay. This makes some sense. 24th overall pick. We have the graphic up here. I hope you guys are watching on YouTube. He is Keith Law's 72nd prospect overall. And then on MLB.com, he was the 50th prospect. Again, that was with the 24th pick. So it seems to me that Scott Harris and company, and this will definitely be apparent with the next guy we talk about, they have a type. They're sticking with it. They believe in a mold of an athlete that they want to bring into the organization, and Yoast fits that.
Yeah, like I said, I'm going to be real. I didn't know anything about this guy. But he checks boxes that we talked about. Up the middle athlete, left-handed hitter, as you pointed out, extreme contact hitting shortstop. Whiff rate last year of 7% in a small sample. He was a late rising guy. He's a little bit young for his high school class, so some untapped upside. Listed on Keith Law's report at 6'1", 170. I think he's already grown taller than that. If you just would have told me the Tigers picked a guy with this profile, I would have said, yep, that makes sense. They have a type. They also kind of like to be different, right? So we're higher on this guy than everyone else. We know better than you. Sometimes it gets annoying, but that approach is kind of working for the Tigers these days. And I don't know. Just the profile I'm pretty interested in. I don't know if this kid's going to be any good, but he seems to have a hitting profile of a Kevin McGonigal with the athleticism of a Bryce Rayner. Like, I don't know if he's going to be as good of a prospect as either of those guys because that's a very high bar. But there's some things to like just looking at him from the outside. The buzzword for the Tigers in this year's draft is helium. Guys who are rising up late in the process that they think they're on. Maybe they were on before others. Not even quite this extreme, but once upon a time, that guy was Jackson Jobe, and that was a different front office, different people running that draft. Yeah, I mean, you could still argue maybe the Tigers should take in Marcelo Meyer, but Jobe has turned out to be a pretty good guy to have in your system. Yeah. This is the MLB draft. We'll see what happens. We got a long way before we'll see, who Jordan Yost becomes, but it's a pretty intriguing profile. I'm kind of ready to learn more about him, watch him play a little bit,
Well, I want to. So when he does his introduction into Comerica Park, I'll be very curious to see hear from you what your eyes see or whatever. Because we, Clark, Pacheco, Greene, over the years, we've had some guys that have been like, all right, I could this physical profile, I don't know if it's gonna work out, but this physical profile makes a lot of sense, And my initial thoughts on Yoast are, I don't see any kind of wow traits. And sometimes that seems like a criticism. I actually don't really mean it as a criticism. So from some very quick research, it seems like a very well-rounded prospect without some pop, wow type trait. And he's a contact hitter. The discipline thing we already talked about. That feels like a safe floor to build a prospect up. That feels like, and they talk about baseball IQ also on a lot of his scouting reports. That to me feels like, all right, we have this right here that is a little bit harder to teach, feel, all those kind of intangible.
Yeah.
And then we can get him into a professional system and build up his body a little bit. He's going to have to get stronger. The weight that's listed, 6'1", 170, like that's obviously, not going to play in the major leagues more than likely. So like
he's 17 to 18. He's gonna be fine physically.
Sure, but like that's all part of it is what I'm saying too. Is that like in terms of like the late bloomer thing, in terms of like their belief in what they can do, is that like this guy is not tapped out physically. Even if you just look at some of the YouTube highlights, and again, it's all YouTube. I'm not trying to claim to be an expert, but you can see how it's mostly contact and plate coverage and not necessarily power. So I'll be interested to see if they tweak, what tweaks. I'm sure they're going to do something. They do with his swing. And then where his position is long term, I'll be curious about. But you're also picking for the first time since we've been doing, live draft reactions, Cody. You're picking in the back end of the first round.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you get guys that like fall for a reason, or in this case, ranked where they are for a reason. I'm saying quotes here, ranked for a reason, because obviously they don't care about what Keith Law's rankings are. No offense, Keith Law. But like that to me is like, all right, here's a baseline of what we can do. We still believe there's upside because of his age, because of his late bloomer stuff. So we have a base and we have upside. This feels like something that we can work with. And plus the athletic positioning with him. This feels like something we can do at 24. And now we are, to move on to the next pick, we are recording this within, 15 minutes of the competitive balance pick that the Tigers had, number 34 overall. And this one was a little bit more of you got to scroll to see, what's going on with him.
I scrolled for the first one and I just kept scrolling.
Michael Olivito, I hope I'm saying that correctly. Catcher. You want to take a guess on what he bats, Cody?
I think he's a left-handed hitter.
Left-handed hitter. I can't believe you got that one correct. I thought I was going to stump you with that one.
Do you think the Tigers care about having the platoon advantage?
And this is a guy, he's from, I believe I'm not an expert in New York geography, but I believe that's like Long Island.
Much better than I do.
I believe that's Long Island area. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. Again, another fast riser. This one actually reminded, like, I watched some highlights, again, just highlights, but I did see more like oomph from the bat in his highlights. But I will say this, as someone who's covered high school baseball in New York, I could tell it was high school baseball in New York based on those field quality. Sorry, guys. But anyway.
Hauppauge, New York is a hamlet on Long Island, by the way.
All right, there you go. It seems this actually kind of gave me, and again, I'm not trying to compare them, but like this one gave me more McGonagall-esque. Maybe it was the sweet lefty swing and it just showed like a little bit more pop. This one like gave me McGonagall like, oh, okay, well that's I see that. That's all I'm saying. I see that. Not comparing the two, but like this one was out of left field. In case you're curious, 219th prospect on MLB.com. So
he was not in Keith Law's top 100. Kylie McDaniel of ESPN was a little higher on him. I think had him as high as 50 at one point.
And you could tell that like the way the guys on ESPN, because that's the broadcast I was watching, were talking about the Tigers picks. They were basically like, all right, they have confidence in what they're doing.
Yeah.
And they're not criticizing the pick. And I'm not even here to criticize the pick. This is the biggest day in these young guys' lives. I'm not here to put them down in any way. But like it seems to me that this is the hey man, if you're Scott Harris, hey man, I know what I'm doing. This is the guy that we want to breathe new life into this organization this year. So, or these guys in this case. So it's kind of a Scott Harris flex. It's either going to be hubris or a huge flex. We'll find out in 4 years.
Well, let's keep in mind who's running this draft in addition to Scott Harris. Rob Metzler, the assistant GM who's in charge of scouting, came from the Rays system, had a great draft track record there. Mark Connor, scouting director, came from the Padres system, drafted a lot of really good players over there. In just a couple of years in Detroit, they've drafted a lot of good players. These guys seem to know what they're doing. They're not afraid to be a little bit out of the box. Left-handed hitter, catcher, up the middle athlete. Can he stick at catcher? I don't know if anyone's actually seen this guy enough to know. It doesn't sound like the early reviews are great. Let's keep in mind, we're going to have the ABS eventually. This whole receiving thing, one of these days, is going to start mattering a lot less. It does seem like the Tigers are stockpiling. You know, you have Brasenio, who probably won't be a catcher, but maybe. You have Lorenzo, who has had to improve a lot, you know, in his catching abilities. It seems like they're not afraid to get some of these catchers who can mash a little bit, and we'll see what the play is. You can move him to first. Maybe, you know, Olivito maybe could have more of an outfield profile. Seems to be a little more, you know, of a swift mover in that way. Or maybe you're just hoping one of these guys hits. Or maybe you think, oh, we were ahead of the game. All you guys who were drafting catchers who can receive were dumb. We got a guy who can mash. You want him, you know? Yeah. Like, there might be a forward-thinking nature in that regard. So that's about all I can say without having ever watched this guy play, with having watched him take about 4 swings on YouTube. But interesting draft choices, if nothing else. And that is going to make these guys kind of fun to follow, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And you know, the draft, this was a fun draft. I will say that. It was a fun draft with a couple twists and turns there. You know, the ESPN basically like threw the papers up.
2 picks in, they're like, we're done.
Yeah, like it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what we said beforehand. We're just going to react now. So always fun. Congratulations to all the draft picks and the draft picks that will come after we do this podcast, because, again, lifelong dream come true. Good for those guys and their families. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll get to the Major League team, which we don't know. You know, the draft is all positive and stuff because anything is possible. In the present, a couple problems persist. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back.
Scott, you have a Built Rewards card, right?
I do, Kratz. I pay a lot of money in rent, and now I get something for that. There's no cost to join, and just by paying rent, you unlock flexible points that can be transferred to your favorite hotels and airlines, a future rent payment, your next Lyft ride, and much more. When you pay rent through Built, you unlock 2 powerful benefits. First, you earn one of the industry's most valuable points on rent every month. No matter where you live or where your landlord is, your rent now works for you, and you gain access to exclusive neighborhood benefits in your city. Built's neighborhood benefits are things like extra points on dining out, complimentary post-workout shakes, and much more. Unique experiences that only Built members can access. And when you're ready to travel, Built points can be converted to your favorite miles and hotel points around the world, meaning your rent can literally take you places. So if you're not earning points on rent, my question is, what are you waiting for? Start paying rent through Built and take advantage of your neighborhood benefits by going to joinbuilt.com/foul. That's joinbilt.com/FOUL. Make sure to use our URL so that they know we sent you.
All right, coming back here, Cody, the Major League aspect of the Tigers organization is I guess you could say, it's kind of silly to say, but it's like true, the lowest point of the season, because they have a 4-game losing streak for the first time all season, and just got swept by Seattle and looked a little bit like the counter punches were like weaker, which is not something that we're like used to seeing from this style of Tigers organization. And so we're going to try to balance like real concerns and then, you know, stay away from the overreactions. I wanted to start out this by saying, like, I thought Dan Petrie said it best on the radio on Sunday, and he was really just talking about the 5 solo home runs that Seattle had to begin their scoring on Sunday. But it just kind of felt like every single time this series that the Tigers had a chance to either, you know, get some momentum or come back a little bit, Seattle always had an answer. And Petrie, I'm paraphrasing, he said, you know, it just kind of sucks the wind out of you a little bit. I feel like there were a lot of like the wind gets taken out from you moments for the Tigers this weekend, where it's like you think you're building something. All right, the comeback train's happening, the gritty stuff is going, and then it's like little things that added up to, like I said, like a sweep from Seattle and overall a 4-game skid. So that's kind of how I would describe the weekend. What do you think?
No. Friday and Saturday were miserable. 2 of the worst games the Tigers have played all year. Any wind was sucked out of those games pretty early. I think, I guess they were able to sort of stick around, but those were really bad days. And even your all-stars and Tarik Skubal and Casey Mize were off a little bit. And then the bullpen kind of finally had its big collapse. It's just been bad. And we've talked about the pen a lot. I think fans are well aware, and fans, have been looking forward to the trade deadline for a long time. But let's go back to June 1st. This is before Sunday's very bad day. The Tigers had a 5.03 bullpen ERA since June 1st. It ranks 26th in baseball. It was bad. And they were kind of surviving with it, And it felt like it was all foreshadowing kind of what we saw the last 4 games, which is just kind of a meltdown. Your Jim and Chase Lee finally lost his effectiveness. Tommy Canley, you've ridden so hard, finally just had a really bad weekend. Will Vest gave up a run. Tyler Holton, who looked to be recapturing his form, he gave up a run. And now you're like, oof, yeah, it's more clear than ever that this bullpen is not in a good spot. And then I think it sends you into the All-Star break with kind of a weird vibe. Like I wrote about this for Monday, just like, how do we get the perspective right here? Because it was a rough series, and you still have the best record in baseball, and you have an 11.5 game division lead, and we're talking about everything through the lens of like, can the Tigers win the World Series? So there are a lot of reasons to still feel good, but clearly this is a rough patch. I think the Tigers kind of need the All-Star break. I had said this for a while. I think I could feel the guys just being kind of fatigued, which makes total sense. It's a long season. The bullpen had been taxed heavily. It had underperformed, had some short starts from some of your horses. Jack Flaherty was actually pretty good on Sunday. So I don't know. Here we are. What do you got off that?
Yeah, the perspective thing is the hardest part of this. And like I was telling you before we press record, is that like I see all the passion from fans and media about the bullpen and its issues, and then I understand like there's only so many ways to improve. So you said you go to the trade deadline. I don't have anything original about that other than I just think it might not be some like flip the switch moment. It's probably going to be something that whatever move it is or promotion it is, it's probably going to be something that you're not like feeling gung ho about at that time, because I think for the first time, obviously, because they haven't been in this position in years, the Tigers are going to see the back end of like the trade deadline process. And what I mean by that is that every team under the sun is going to want pitching if they're in contention. You also have expanded playoffs, which the Tigers have benefited in the past. That means that you are going to have more competition, and it's going to be a seller's market if you have starting pitching or, especially relief help. So I would say prepare to be disappointed in whatever move it is, and be prepared to have to think about it being more of an internal, like, or somebody already in the organization aid, because to paraphrase Rick Pitino, Willie Hernandez is not walking through that door. Jose Valverde is not walking through that door. Todd Jones, I think, actually probably technically like walks through the door, but in terms of helping your team on the field, is not walking through that door.
Do you want to add Todd Jones? I don't know.
Oh well, he was all-time saves leader. I'm gonna give him some respect there. But the thing is, this is a problem that every team in baseball is facing. So like that's important to note when you're looking at like, well, why can't they go get this guy? I don't know. Maybe the asking price was Max Clark.
Well,
Or
Kieran,
maybe
I
it
think
was
the
Jose
most important
Ursillo.
thing
Like,
you said there is Willie Hernandez is not walking through this door. I think that's important to note. Scott Harris says a lot of things. He's not dumb. He is not oblivious. The Tigers know
they know.
they need to
They know.
bolster their bullpen. They are well aware.
Yes.
I do not think they are going to be inactive at the deadline. I think they're going to go get a dude, maybe two dudes, to improve, to get rid of, the bullpen has the worst whiff rate of any bullpen in baseball right now. They're going to attempt to improve that. I think they're going to go get a guy with swing and miss stuff. Now, whether it's the big name or whether they'll get queued and there'll be some guy we have barely heard of, like, I'm not sure it matters. Like, that's where I get the Willie Hernandez thing. You are going to be acquiring a rental reliever for 2 months. By the very nature, that is a volatile thing. You could go get Aroldis Chapman, and he might be pretty good, but he might give up a couple grand slams and have a 4 ERA. Or you go get David Bednar, and, maybe he's nails. Or you could get some guy from the Nationals that we aren't even thinking of right now, and he might be pretty good for you. Like, I don't think there should be this fixation on, they have to get this reliever. There is not any savior out there. You're going to get a hard-throwing, volatile pitcher who will probably be a little bit up and down. And that's why I keep coming back to, like, look, they have to get some external additions. I think they also know Carlos Hernandez is not the answer. But you're going to have to pair whatever you bring in with internal improvements, too. Is Chase Lee cooked? Is Brant Herter cooked? Can you fix Bo Brisky, who's now on the injured list in Toledo? Is Troy Melton or someone else from the minors going to come up and help you?
Dylan Smith.
Dylan Smith.
Is Alex Lang going to be a guy that's going to be a part of this? You're right. Those are like.
Did you watch the final 2 months of the regular season last year?
Yes.
I think the Tigers need to hope they can recapture some of that magic to stabilize this pitching staff. More than anything they do at the trade deadline, it's going to come down to, can you maximize some of the dudes you already have, bring in a guy or two, and hope they have a good couple months. I think that's the answer. And that's a hard thing to do, but you also have the right guys to do it. You have Chris Fetter. You have a smart organization. A lot's going to change between now and the end of the season.
And that's what I mean by it not being sexy. Is that like, there's nothing sexy about like, all right, well, let's see if Dylan Smith can, give us some leverage work. You know what I mean? That doesn't get the headlines in the newspaper on the back page like a trading for Chapman would. So I'm glad you brought up Chapman. And again, now Chapman's probably not available because the Red Sox, I don't know if you know this, they won 10 in a row. So again, it's all muddied right now. There will be some clarity that comes in the next couple weeks, but right now the whole situation is very muddy, and I think the internal additions, for weird phrasing, is kind of where you're looking. And also, I would say that take away the best record in baseball part / 9 games off their division lead. Like if they were going into the All-Star break, in first place and but you knew that the glaring hole was the bullpen, you would feel like, well, that's an area that am confident in their ability to improve more so, honestly, than like offense or even, again, not the best starting pitching weekend, but like more so offense than starting pitching. So I did want to, you brought up Canley. I did want to say two things on Canley real quick. Talking about riding him as long as you can. The last time he pitched 60-plus innings, Cody, was 2019.
Wow.
So, there's some injury stuff in there, obviously, but it like he has not pitched, and he's at like 39, I believe, right now. So give or take there, I'm pretty sure I'm pretty close. And also, and again, saves aren't everything. I understand that, but again, I just wanted to point something out. He only had his season high coming into this year was 2 saves. So, like, that just gives you an example of, like, the kind of leverage use he's had this year. He's got 9. And we know in terms of how he's been used this year, he's been in more or less a save guy than more than 9 saves worth. So like, I just wanted to point that out in terms of like, this guy is probably gassed, and he's 35. Like, he's probably gassed. You need help. And then Vest, as well. You probably got to save Vest from himself a little bit and preserve him and be able to have a third person that you are confident in to come into an 8th inning or to come into a 9th inning to be able to shut down the opposing team's offense. And right now, you don't have that.
The more I think about it, like just the ups and downs of baseball, I don't think the Tigers are going to have the 26th ranked bullpen ERA in August. Like,
probably not.
It's just hard to say. I mean, they're going to have to make some changes. You're going to have to get some new bodies in there. But, like, it's been so bad, it's almost due to get better in a way, just because that's how this sport is.
Yeah. I mean, there will be fresh blood in some fashion. But where it comes from and what they're asked to do, that'll be interesting. And then also, I just wanted to mention again that Matt Manning's on the 40-man roster. If you could find a use for him, that would be good. I know he has a 6 ERA in Toledo, but just saying he's on the 40-man, like, you gotta be able to use him somehow. But anyway, we're gonna get to a concerning notion, and then also just kind of like a thought exercise about a couple outfielders for the Tigers. But first, a word from our sponsors. Nothing says summer like long days, clutch plays, and firing off a few bets on the game, all with DraftKings Sportsbook. Never bet on baseball before? It's easy. Pick a guy to go yard, hammer some live odds mid-game, or just ride with your squad and hope for the best. No spreadsheets, just vibes and dingers. Here's something special for first-timers. New DraftKings customers bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code FOUL. It's code FOUL for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-78-9777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. New customers only. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. All right, coming back here, Cody. One of the increasingly talked about aspects of this Tigers team is one that was kind of like one of the catalysts for the run through the postseason last year, and that would be one Parker Meadows. Parker Meadows is a Mendoza-level hitter right now. He's 200, 199, whatever.
193, below the Mendoza line.
Now he's 193 now? Oof, man. So
it's 109 at bats now, too. It's not like it's 30. It's a decent sample.
It's not good. And he had him and Riley miscommunication, whatever you want to call it.
That was weird.
And those are two guys that are used to, they've been playing outfield together for years. So that was like odd to see. Parker Meadows, according to Baseball Reference, is only a .1 defensive WAR player. And
he's just played 3 balls in the last 5 games.
So
incredibly uncharacteristic.
There's a lot of there's like a mix of like characteristic and uncharacteristic, and then what you hope the characteristic would be is essentially the Parker Meadows experience so far. So I was like, all right, well, people are kind of seeing like, should he be sent down to Toledo? So I'm like, all right, well, let's go refresh the Toledo stats. As I say about AAA, I'm just not sure what purpose it would serve for Parker Meadows in his rehab stint, coming off the injury, which was not short, by the way. He had a .636 slugging percentage to go with a .407 on base. So more time in Toledo going to solve his issues with major league pitching? I don't really think so. Okay, but let's just say you still do it because he's got to work on 2 things. Whatever. You send him down. So now Vierling's playing center field basically full time. You supplement some Wenzel.
Matt Vierling, who's also been struggling.
Yeah, and then you supplement some Wenzel in center field. Do you have to give, you don't want to do it, but do you have to give Riley a game or 2 in center field? I mean, the benefit is you probably don't need Vierling on the infield with the McKinstry and the bias and Colt Keith being able to play third base. You feel kind of safe there. But like we don't really know what's going on with Carpenter's hamstring. We'll see. This hamstring's a hamstring, but like all of a sudden, like then what? Then what? You gonna call up? Call up Kreidler to give you some spill in center field? Does that float your boat? Do you call up Jahan and just kind of treat him like a true right fielder? I actually would not be that opposed to that because
It's
I
a
want
better solution than anything else you just listed.
Yeah, I would like to see it. But the point is, there's not a lot of slam dunk options here.
No, I think you got to ride this out with Parker Meadows. Now, part of me does like this is why we can't just say, oh, he's going to X guy is going to be a 4-win player like a lot of people were this winter. It's really hard to be a 4-win player. I love Parker Meadows, great dude. He has an inconsistent hitting track record, and he's got long levers and is prone to whiff. I think he's going to be a hitter who's prone to some really rough slumps. In fact, he is. We have seen that throughout his career at all levels. This is who he is. He's also capable of getting really hot. So I think you're going to have to be able to ride with that. You obviously have to hope the defensive mistakes don't continue. And I don't think they will, right? It's been weird. I don't know if he's bringing the bat with him out to the field or he just happened to get a couple weird reads. Like, if Parker Meadows is playing Parker Meadows-esque defense, he is still probably more valuable than any other option you just listed. He can't hit 150, but he can hit, I don't know, there's a pretty low bar for what he can hit if he's giving you plus defense. Add in a little power and maybe you can hit 210 and it's all good, So I think you got to ride this out. I think the people who are trying to send down Parker Meadows are some of the people who were trying to send down Colt Keith in April. And look how that one turned out. You got to ride this out. It would be nice if you had a little better like contingency plan. Makes me wonder, like, are they going to try to go get some other like super utility guy at the deadline? But let's see. Parker Meadows, he's going to get, he missed a long time with injury, and Matt Vierling missed a long time with injury. And so I'm not sure if it's coincidence that's taken both these guys a minute to get up to speed here. Sims Toledo, in my opinion, is not a magical fix.
Again, my question whenever it's anybody, and I'll throw in guys that like it was the right decision, like Jace, Kreidler, even though it's a little bit different because he was never designed to be relied upon. But you know what I'm saying, Jahan. Like my question is always going to be, to what end? Yeah. So if you're going to send down Parker Meadows, like, to what end? Did you want him to have a 1.085 OPS and then call him up? Because he already did that. So again, to what end? To what end is the question I would ask, and then you got to sell me on it, because AAA it's impossible to gauge, and absolutely impossible to gauge. All right, another little thing that's populated Tiger's Twitter is this question about whether Riley Greene is clutch, and it's a funny thing, Cody, because analytically speaking, we don't really believe in clutch, right? That was one of the big like turning points of of really sports talk in general, but like baseball talk, and there's a million things I could throw at you about whether he is, quote, clutch. I could tell you that with runners in scoring position, he has an 843 OPS. I could tell you with runners on base period, which depending on the guy, you sometimes first base is scoring position for, the way Joey Cora, likes to wave that arm. So like with just men on period, Riley Greene has an 887 OPS. But then there's like, tie game, 2-out stuff where the numbers, tend to fall. Now, I didn't look at league average and all that stuff, whereas I think like probably 2 outs with a runner on second, I doubt anybody's hitting 350. That has a certain number of at-bats. So I just kind of wanted to get your gauge on this about like the Riley Greene, quote, clutch discussion, because I think it might be, it's a great thing that you could just, you believe it and then you find this number and it confirms what you think and you're done.
Yeah. Right. He was pretty clutch Sunday. He had a pretty clutch home run, right? If we're just going based on anecdotal evidence. Now, he's had some big at-bats or at-bats with runners in scoring position where he's punched and maybe not looked pretty while doing it. It's not really a guy who cuts down the swing trying to poke a single somewhere. And I'm fine with that. Let's let the guy do some damage. I think I'm ready to die on that hill. Now, if you just want to look at what the raw data says, if you're watching on YouTube, here's the leaderboard. Fangraphs has a metric, the clutch metric. What it does is it measures, it's kind of an oxymoron. It just measures how the guys do in high leverage situations compared to normal situations. Riley Greene, 6th least clutch player, if you believe at all in this metric having usefulness in baseball. He is doing worse in leverage situations than he is regular situations this season. Now, one of the big thoughts of why clutch is not a real thing is because it tends to be volatile throughout guys' careers. He's been better in leverage situations every other season of his career. Also, here's why I think this is dumb. Let's look at this list. Juan Soto, Dansby Swanson, Austin Riley, Aaron Judge. No, Seiya Suzuki. I think I want pretty much all these guys.
I'd take that lineup.
Diaz.
Like, make that.
You might win a World Series with that lineup, Kieran.
Like, just give me the least clutch guys, and I think.
You couldn't win the World Series because none of them are a clutch.
and that's something else too. Like, and this is not me being dismissive in general to the stats or even the notion. Like, if you want to say like, all right, in a tie game, he's also 286 hitter. Like, it's just like there's a lot of stuff in there. But if you have a measurement, now you talked up Aaron Judge quite highly on our last episode, and by the way, warranted. If you have a unit of measurement that puts Aaron Judge as the 10th worst anything as a hitter, it might be something worth like redoing the formula. You know, just and then Juan Soto is what, number 2 on that list?
Number 2.
It might be worth revisiting the formula. That anecdotally that might be my reaction there. So I don't know. I can guarantee you the Tigers feel pretty comfortable with him in quote clutch situations. It's a guy that they want out there. And by the way, that home run today off a lefty.
Only a second of the year off a lefty. He's actually kind of struggled against lefties this year.
And at the time, like a vital play. So, all right. Well, let's end the note end the podcast, Cody, on a more positive note. We got news over the weekend. 2 things. One, Tarik Skubal will start the All-Star game. Something that was expected, but until something's official, it's hard to be certain, especially given the talent that the American League totes got
the wish. Max Fried just bowed out. That was cool to hear. He called Skubal and talked to him before, kind of gauged whether Skubal wanted to start, and Skubal was even like, I don't know, man. I know it's your deal coming back to Atlanta, so I'm not going to be mad. And Fried basically admitted that Skubal deserved it and sounded like maybe he was looking for a way to get out anyway. And then he ended up getting a terrible blister on his finger. So baseball gods, I don't know. But I think that works out. I think Skubal deserves to start the All-Star game. I think it'll be a really good product for the fans. Skubal versus Skeens. We finally get it for all of 1 inning.
Right.
I'm excited.
No, it's good, and it's important. I'm not one that subscribes to the fact that Tarik Skubal like pitched like as a differently on Friday in preparation.
The rest thing that the metrics on that are really not even metrics, just fucking normal ERA. Like, it's pretty interesting.
No, I mean that's all warranted, but in terms of like take a couple miles an hour up the fastball. Saw some of that on the Twitter sphere. I will say I disagree. And then the other piece, and this is really cool, and I put this on X, Cody. Like, Skubal's obviously a perseverance, redemption story. Torres is to a certain extent. Greene is to a certain extent. Obviously, Javi and McKinstry, but not to be lost on that now that he's officially an all-star. Casey Mize, I mean, number 1 overall pick, like the first face of the rebuild. That's a lot to take on. And he certainly had his major league struggles, and then he had injuries, and then, how guaranteed was his roster spot? Not that guaranteed. And now he is going to be an All-Star, and that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I'll be curious to hear from you. What, how did Casey react to that kind of news? Something that I'm sure he envisioned for himself, but he also at the same time probably thought it was going to happen maybe 2-3 years earlier.
He was pretty. He was kind of businesslike about it. Like, I think that speaks to like the Casey Mize, who has very high standards for himself. Probably he's like, yeah, I should have been doing this a couple years ago. He got a little reflective with one quote where he said, it's some hard work and tough times finally turning into success and good times. And that's true. It's a really good story. But he wasn't like, at least when he talked to reporters, he wasn't emotional. He didn't get super reflective. He was, if I had to guess, just even reading his bio, I think he was trying to like hold some of that in. I think this means a lot to him, but I don't, yeah, I think he feels like he should be an all-star. I think it means something to him to be there, but like, I think he's like, all right, now I want to be this guy every year. Unrelated to Casey, because I think it's cool he's going, but dude, pretty much everyone's bowed out of this thing. Like, I don't know what the answer is to get guys to actually want to play in the All-Star game, but God, silly. It's like this every year, but it seemed even worse this season.
It did seem like a lot of like, I anecdotally felt like a lot more updates and like, this person's not trying to play. This person's not trying to play. What the solution there is, Cody, is to bring back home field advantage in the World Series.
It's probably to pay. It's probably to pay players. It's probably we have to pay you to go to the All-Star game or something.
If you pitch in the All-Star game, then your team gets a 10% increase in the upcoming salary cap that the owners are going to push to the next CBA. That's a topic for another day.
Oh boy,
but congratulations.
We're done here.
Congratulations to Tarik. Congratulations to Casey. That's really cool. And then, and we'll circle back to what we started out with. Congratulations to Jordan Yost, and congratulations to Michael Olivito. Lifelong dream, the first in a line of lifelong dreams fulfilled. That's really cool, and can't wait to see what they do for the Tigers and follow their journey every step of the way. You can follow us on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Cody Stavenhagen. I'm at Kieran_Steckley, pod page at Tiger Territory _. Be sure to be on alert. We might have a little bit of an irregular, publishing schedule this week. All-Star game, other stuff going on, but we will be putting reactions to everything and all the latest updates, and maybe even a fun nugget or two here and there this week. So again, irregular publishing schedule, but we will be in your podcast feeds or on your YouTube page if you subscribe to us on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Instagram, TikTok, all that stuff. You guys know what to do. We appreciate all of you. So for Cody Stavenhagen, I am Kieran Steckley. Everybody have a great day.